Welcome to Martini Time, my favorite time of the day. And I don't know whether it's being able to talk with you or having a martini or both. So, let's see what my monkey mind is jumping onto today. As you know, I live a mundane life, and I have to make do with whatever happens in my life during the day, everyday mind. And in Zen, when a Zen master was asked what enlightenment was, he said, everyday mind. And so that's what I've got, everyday mind, and that's what you've got. So let's connect some dots. And, you know, I don't know what enlightenment is, but I think that's included. Connecting dots, being able to grasp the bigger picture. But just as a side note, I think I talked about this the other day. But I've got two little statues on my museum shelf here. And one of them is Christ hanging on the cross. And another one is a little pissing boy. See? So I hold these two together. I connect dots. So if you ever feel like this, if you ever feel like you're just hanging on the suffering cross, piss on it. Don't you think that's funny? I tell you, when you just say piss on it, it'll get you off the cross. But I digress. So, I've been watching, we stopped watching Wallander, and now we're watching Sherlock, this BBC program, and I'm all excited about that now. Wallander's, I've milked Wallander for all I could, and now I'm with Sherlock. And so the title of this talk, I just typed it up there, is The Zen of Sherlock. So what is the Zen of Sherlock? Sherlock Holmes. And while there's the Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes, and then this modern one is like Sherlock is reincarnated in modern London, but there's the same theme is of this 360-degree awareness of Sherlock Holmes. So he just observes everything, and then he can recall, he can connect the dots. Boom, 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 real fast, you see, like a computer. And Watson is just going, how is he doing that, you see? And so this, but basically it is super fast observance, 360 degrees, and then connecting dots to get the meaning, a larger meaning, you see. So you get to a larger meaning, a greater understanding, by connecting the dots. But we don't see the dots, the connection, do we? Because we don't see the total field, the total reality, and that's Zen. Zen is all about shifting the paradigm from foreground to background, to awaken background awareness. That's one of the primary functions of Zen. Excuse me. the Zen of Zen. So one of the functions or the design of Zen is to make that leap from foreground awareness, which is just looking at things and not connecting any dots. You look at this, you look at that, you don't see any connection. Oh, there's a hand there and there's a hand there. What's the connection? Ta-da! It's all connected with one body. If you are primarily a narrow focus mind, which is the mind that we're conditioned to live in our culture, which is a object-focused mind, we have lost the inability to see the total background of reality. And so Sherlock is kind of like a metaphor for that. It's like a lost awareness. So basically, the author, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was really writing about the lost primary or background awareness. A friend of mine just came back from 2 weeks in Iceland, and he was talking about the Vikings who went there around 1000 AD, and they navigated there. This is up and around the Arctic Circle when it was all daylight. So they navigated not by the stars, but during the daylight. No compasses. And then you have the Polynesians who navigated to the Hawaii over thousands of miles. No compass. How did they do that? So obviously they had an awareness of the total field of the ocean, for instance, the Polynesians and the Vikings. The ocean, they and the ocean were one. They knew the ocean. They could read the ocean. They could read the total reality they were in. You see, like Sherlock Holmes. Oh, that wave is going a little bit this way. There's a bird. There's a twig. There's some foam. There's, I don't know how they do it. But the idea is here that there is a lost awareness. And we want it. It's paradise lost. We want to retrieve. It's called, in Zen, it's called Buddha nature. Buddha nature. The knowing, the knower, the seer that is prior to what's seen. The face before your parents were born, you see. This whole idea of the true self, the Buddha nature. This primary awareness before consciousness. See, consciousness is focused. When we're conscious of something, we're conscious of something. And there's a subject and there's an object. That's duality, subject and object. And I'm conscious of something, some form, you see. But this primary awareness holds both. It's prior to me and the object, you see. It's prior to consciousness, which is that world we live in, this world we believe is the real world, you see. So this primary consciousness is like beneath the surface, and we've lost it. So we want to find it. Paradise lost. How do we get to wholeness? How do we get to unity consciousness? How do we get home, you see? So we project it into the future and say, oh, I want to get to enlightenment. How long does that take? What do I have to do? I have to meditate and do yoga and all that? Okay, I'll do that. I'll get to my awareness in the future. But it's already here. We are already primary. We're already Sherlock Holmes. You see, we're already Vikings and Polynesians. We already have that the awareness, but we can't find it because we are entranced with narrow focus lens, object consciousness. And this object consciousness began to be developed in the Enlightenment with the scientific method, which is basically object consciousness. You look at objects. You look at objects, and objects are your field. But the scientist is not studied. The scientist is not the object of his study, only objects. The scientist is out of the picture. The scientist is kind of like Yahweh, outside of creation, somewhere, you see. And so this kind of consciousness has made a lot of stuff, but it's also destroying the world. Something's missing. Sherlock is missing. You see, this ground of awareness that sees unity before it sees division. You see, the ground, the total field, sees unity without the separate individual. It's awareness without something who's aware. It's awareness before me. And then out of awareness rises me and what I'm looking at, the subject and the object, you see. So the subject and the object rises out of this body. Well, it's like my body. My body is whole, and here's the subject, and here's the object, and this subject is looking at the object. This is an it. This is an I, it, you see. And even my body, here's an it, here's an it, here's the I, and then I can look at my body and say, oh, there's a thumb, there's a finger, there's a little finger, you see, those are its. And then I look at you, or you're in it. And then I look at everything. Everything's in it, including my own body. But this finger here is not there. You see, this finger here is invisible. It's the ghost in the machine. It's the subject that is never seen. So that fundamental duality is the duality of Western consciousness. And it's worked pretty good, but it's reached this limitation, and something is missing. And so I've been reading, Alan Watts. I've been writing on Alan Watts and the power of Watts this morning. And basically what I'm using Alan Watts as is a way to communicate what Alan Watts was all about. And Alan Watts was all about Zen, Taoism, and the awakening of our primary awareness, the field. The field. You see, even in quantum physics, you got the electron, and so they set up the experiment, and the experiment will either say the electron is a particle, which is a thing, or the electron is a wave, a field. Well, it can't be a particle and a field at the same time. Those are incompatible. Those are contradictions. You can't have them both. You can't have a verb and a noun as one, you see. It's either a verb or a noun. It's either a thing or it's an action, you see. So our grammar, you see, even frames everything in noun and verb, you see. So the field is the ground. Paul Tillich called the ground of being. It's called God, the true self, Buddha nature. But these are all names. That's not what it is. It's awareness prior to consciousness. So it's felt. It's known. It's not put into a conceptual framework. It's not put into a thinking, into a linear thought line, logical thought line. It's not like it's all at once. It's not like cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. It's all at once. Gestalt psychology was all about this. The Gestalt is the perception of the totality. And then comes your objects. Gestalt psychology said, when we walk into a space, we have a perception of the totality, and then we begin to look at objects. But looking at objects, I look there, and I look there, and I look there. But that looking around, you see, is basically rising out of the primary perception of the total room. So you have awareness as, which has no I, and then you have I am unaware. I am conscious of, you see. So awareness of is really awareness of what we are already aware of as, you see. But awareness as includes me. There is no me in awareness as. I am what I'm aware of. And I think I talked about that this morning when I was talking about when you read a teaching and it resonates with you, like I've been rereading Alan Watts, or any teaching that resonates with your heart. What you do is you read everything that teacher wrote, and then you read it again, and then you get some audio tapes and listen to them, and you just immerse yourself in it. You just totally immerse yourself in it. Then you read what they wrote, what influenced them. So you just get totally immersed in it. And what that does, you see, is makes the shift from thinking about the teaching and comparing it with other teachings and thinking about it as concepts, thinking about it as philosophy or religion. No, you begin to become the teaching. You begin to be aware as the teaching. So there's this gradual shift from I, object, I am aware of the teaching, to awareness as the teaching. And so in this way you begin to evolve your consciousness, because you go through these teachings following the bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, you see. Following the clues like Sherlock Holmes, that will lead you to connecting the dots to a greater and greater understanding of who you are. So we connect the dots. See, life is a big mystery. Life is like a murder mystery. Who did it? Who killed me? I feel like I'm dead. I feel like I'm not connected. I feel like I'm a zombie. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm incomplete. I feel like I've forgotten something that I should know. I feel like I've got to do something. I've got to make something. I've got to get somewhere to know something. This sense of dissatisfaction that Thoreau called the quiet mankind is in quiet desperation. This existential malaise, this floating anxiety. That's not normal. We think it's normal, but that's not who we are, you see. It's a clue that we're missing something. It's a clue that we have to find out who did it, you see. So we think who did it is somebody else. Trump did it. The liberals did it. The global economy did it. My mother did it. My community did it. My wife did it. My husband did it. I did it. Somebody did it. You see? But we can never find out who did it. There are too many causes. You see, you can't find a single cause to who did it. Like in the murder mysteries, there's one person who did it. Maybe there were two together, working together. But there was a cause, and you find out who did it. But in life, you can't find out who did it, who made you unhappy. If you find something, it doesn't last. It doesn't change anything. You're still unhappy, you see. So even when you find out who did it, there's no transformation. There's no transformation of your being. There's no transformation of the way you are in the world. There's no freedom, you see. So this search for who did it, the detective mysteries are just metaphors for that. Everything's a metaphor. Everything's a metaphor. So, how do we find out who did it? You need Sherlock. You need to ask. You need to invite. You need to give up looking. Because you realize you can't find out who did it. No matter how much you try, you cannot find out who did it with a narrow lens. That's like taking a telephoto lens and looking around by zooming in on everything, trying to find the total picture. You're trying to find a wide-angle view by looking at objects. And all we do when we do that is create an imaginary story of the objects. We don't see the total context. We don't see what's real. What's real is the totality. We don't see what's real. All we see is the story that we use to give meaning to the objects we particularly focus on. So, in order to drop the story that we imagine that gives meaning to the objects we see with our narrow focus lens, is to realize that we cannot see the wide angle, the total picture, the whole field, with a lens that only sees particles. You cannot see the electron as a wave if you're using an experiment that just sees particles, things. But you can't, so the transformation, the leap from foreground looking to background awareness requires a surrender of the telephoto, the zoom lens. Put that sucker in your camera bag. And when you put that in your camera bag, by saying, I don't know who did it, but I am interested in finding out. I'm not leaving the scene, but I don't know. And yet, I don't quit. So it's a paradox. How can you give up and not give up, you see? And that's the paradox of the spiritual search. It's the search to find out that searching won't give you the answer. So that's a paradoxical thing. It's not logical. It's holding two opposites together at the same time. I don't know, I want to know. I don't, you know what I mean? It's the two opposites. So when these two opposites are held together, That's putting the zoom lens in your camera bag, and immediately your wide-angle lens is there. See, the wide-angle lens of total awareness that sees the whole, that connects the dots, not to an imaginary story of reality, but to reality as it is, that's always there. That's always present, because we are that. Thou art thou, you see. But we can't awaken that, we can't activate it until we give up searching for the whole with a little zoom lens. There's nothing wrong with the zoom lens, but it only works well when you start with a wide angle. It's like when you go with a GPS. I've gotten into a lot of trouble because I didn't print out a total map of where I was going. I didn't get the total picture. And then the GPS focuses in and is particular, right? But if you don't have a total picture, it could be off, and you might end up, I missed a wedding almost once because I didn't plug in the right, it was the street address was okay, but I put in the wrong county. So I ended up in some field. Where the fuck am I? You see, I didn't have a total picture. So even, that's a good example, so, trust but verify. No, trust your GPS, trust your narrow focus lens, but get a big picture first. Otherwise, you're going to end up in left field with a story that defines your life instead of what is real, you see. So anyway, so get a Sherlock, the Zen of Sherlock, you see. I think, while it's a great program and it's, the appeal of Sherlock must be more than it's just a good mystery. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle pointed out to something that the industrial age was missing. He was pointing to an awareness of consciousness that the Vikings had and the Polynesians had that we're missing. Industrialization creates people with narrow focus lens. You don't want to see the whole picture or you won't work in an industry. You see, if you want to be a manipulated worker, you can't see the whole picture. You're not supposed to see the whole picture. You're supposed to just see what you're supposed to see with a narrow focus lens. So, industrial society creates people who don't see the total picture. The Renaissance man, that was the idea of the Renaissance man. The Renaissance man, which was the incentive for the liberal education was to make you into a Renaissance mind, a Thomas Jefferson. You see, a Renaissance man. A Renaissance mind was a mind that was not specialized into little boxes. It could see the total field of human history. It could see the total field, you see. A specialized mind, which is what our education does today, just gives you the total field of a box. The total, like a doctor today, where they go specialize into a kidney doctor. All he knows is kidneys. So all the different doctors are specialized. All they know is their organ. They don't know the whole body. The general practitioner who sees the whole body is a dinosaur today. So I think we all understand this. And it happens in many fields, in many ways, in art, in everything. No creativity happens until you put down your zoom lens. No creativity happens until you give up trying to make it happen by focusing on this and that, you see, and trying to connect the dots by force. The dot connection happens spontaneously. It's a gift. It's, wow, I see. The detective connects the clues, and then he can't figure it out, and then he relaxes and has tea. Bam, I see who did it, and he goes running out the door. Eureka. Where did that come from? Where did that eureka come from? It didn't come from the logic. It didn't come from analysis. You see, it came from surrender. It came from surrender. So, thank you for dropping in.